from the rest of the, let's say, classical parties, but it also poses several problems on how to integrate this fourth block into an already complex structure. But I'll come to this also a little bit later. Well, with all this in mind, every decision to go to election as a coalition was the result of long meetings and of coordination and compromises. However, even though each individual party had a choice of going to the elections alone, we quickly realized that we do not have the resources or the human capacity to do so. And in addition, the United Left has become such a brand in the past year that individual parties simply do not have the visibility among the general population. Therefore, working outside of the coalition would have been a loss for each of the coalition partners. So with this outline of our turbulent start as a party as well as a member of the coalition, I try to depict the evolution and the general environment in which we are at the moment. But where does this leave us now? Okay, we have 6 parliamentarians in the Slovenian parliament. We have councillors in several municipalities. We established several local committees and those in the making. So it would seem that we managed to build up quite an infrastructure in a very short period of time. But how does it work in practice? You probably can sense that this is not the part with the challenges and problems. So, there are several challenges for the current and future functioning of our party, and they can be roughly divided into 3 different groups. One would be intercoalitional challenges, one would be internal challenges, and the last one would be external challenges. So let me first address the intercoalitional challenges since I already briefly touched upon them. Apart from the complex structure and inter-party differences, the major challenge on the level of the coalition is communication. And by that I mean communication with the parliamentarian group and for that matter also with the councillors in the municipalities, as well as with other coalition partners. I'm mentioning the problem of communication here because all of the coalition partners, as well as the fourth bloc, are facing the same problems. And this is, we are just not up to speed on what the parliamentary group is actually doing in the parliament. So the challenge, also now and for the future, is to establish formal and constant communication challenges, to make the parliamentarians report to the party about the parliamentary activities, and to make the party more involved in the work of the parliamentary group by lending it substantive support. After the election, the only thing that is keeping the coalition partners together for now is in fact the parliamentary group and the city councillors. And since the communication is not well established with those bodies, also parties have no communication and insight on other coalition partners' activities. Consequently, this poses also the problem of substantive discrepancies between the parties of the coalition as well as between the coalition and the parliamentary group. So especially regarding the latter, the parliamentary group has its own dynamics. It has all the necessary infrastructure, it has all the necessary staff at its disposal, which are fully paid people. It has media coverage, media support, so everything it needs to kind of go on with its program. And in contrast, we have individual parties that have limited resources. Most of its active membership is still working on the voluntary basis. So it is completely impossible to keep up with the work of the parliamentary group, let alone be the ideological force that would dictate its work, as was initially the idea. However, we are conscious of this issue and we have already taken some steps in the direction of fixing this problem. So hopefully with time this will lead to the consolidation of the coalition. This is of crucial importance because another key intercoalitional issue is, especially after the elections, that the coalition is getting internally weak and there are certain tendencies to abandon the coalition. One of the reasons is that during numerous elections, different accusations and grudges over who did or did not do enough for the campaign piled up. So completely, like the human factor. On top of that, there is also the problem with integrating the forward bloc into the coalition, as I already mentioned before. This is problematic because, as a group of civil society movements and non-aligned individuals, the forward bloc doesn't really have one person that represents them, which is somewhat inherent in the nature of this group. But it is, on the other side, making this group feel as not being integrated enough on what is going on within the coalition, and they're feeling that they're not being taken enough into consideration when it comes to the decision-making process. So with all these issues, one can imagine that tendencies and voices against coalition are getting stronger, especially within our own party, which brings us to our internal challenges. So there, within our party, there is like a small, but very resistant and resilient internal current that is voicing criticism towards the coalition. There are definitely internal divisions on the future vision of the Initiative for Democratic Socialism. However, for now, this issue is still in an early phase of discussion, so I think time will show, how much impetus this idea will actually have. So I would therefore like to focus on some of the immediate internal challenges we are dealing with at the moment. First one to mention is definitely the internal reorganization of the party. So after the election streak finally finished, we were able to focus on internal consolidation of the party. With winning the parliamentary elections, the party is now entitled to some financial resources, which of course launched the debate on how these resources should be distributed. When it comes to money, people always start fighting. After a very long period of discussions, we finally decided to partially professionalize some functions within the party that were before done on voluntary basis. However, the end goal was to leave as much means possible to attribute to projects on local levels as well as on national levels. With this structure established, I think now it's been in place maybe a couple of weeks or a month. We believe that we will be able to start putting our program ideas into practice. Furthermore, as I mentioned before, our party is also struggling with establishing effective communication channels, but not only with the parliamentary group or like city councillors, but also with its own membership base. So for now, we established like an internal forum for topic debates, which is like a first step in the direction of intensifying or like making communication channels more transparent. However, constant monitoring and improvement of communication channels with the broad membership will keep on playing a crucial role, especially because there still needs a lot to be done to engage the broad membership in actively participating in the party's future developments and activities, as well as in various projects and field work. This brings me to the next problem, which is that even though we are constantly growing in number, active membership can hardly keep up with covering all the issues that need addressing, or realize all the projects that are under consideration, which is why one of our main focuses and challenges for the future is definitely broadening our local network and increasing active membership. It is very important to tackle these internal and intercoalitional challenges wisely, especially if we want to face the external challenges and present a viable opposition to current political discourse of neoliberalism. Slovenian government is on the brink of selling off the last state-owned property, not to mention it is constantly imposing new austerity measures with severe cuts in public sector. With 6 parliamentarians, we can of course vocalize our criticism and warn that austerity is not the way to go, at least not for the citizens. But at the end, with 6 MPs out of 90, our range of influence is limited, which I believe is somewhat a scenario that can be applied to the destiny of many left parties in other states of the EU. But the encouraging news somehow is that the United Left Coalition is the only party in the parliament whose support is constantly rising even after the elections. I believe that now we are already in the 3rd place. Whereas if I give you, an opposite example, the winning party's support actually dropped by more than 50% in the first 2 months. And as I see it, I also think that this is also a trend that we can sense in some other European countries, and it gives me great joy that this is so. So this is why I believe it is utmost important to tackle the challenges ahead of us in a constructive way that would strengthen the coalition, because we simply cannot afford for this project to fail. It took us 20 years to bring socialism back into the political space as a viable political alternative. And if we do not work constructively to strengthen progressive political as well as civil society left forces in Slovenia, this could be detrimental for the left in our country again for a very long time. And especially at this moment where the neoliberal forces are stepping up their game and are exerting more and more pressure, this is something that we simply cannot afford. But I also want to mention that we are still a very young party in existence for, let's say, a couple of months. So I'm confident that we will persevere, and I hope that with time, more and more countries will hopefully join this struggle that we are fighting. Thank you.
Je tady čas pro debatu. Ty otázky prosím pokládejte v češtině a budou ukončeny do angličtiny a vaše odpověď se bude překládána, pokud budete potřebovat. Jenom pro všechny z vás ještě se zeptám formálně, protože, jak už jsem zmínil, ten meeting, tato setkání je možné díky nadaci Rozy Luxemburkové a může putovat prezenční listina. Pokud jste se podepsali na prezenční listinu, tak je to dobře, pokud ne, tak ji prosím vás vyhledejte a pak se podepište. A po vaší pravé ruce potom na lavici jsou materiály, jednak jsou to brožury Pražské školy Alternativ, které jsou k rozebrání, a jednak je to výňatek z časopisu Solidarita, kde je rozhovor s jedním z dalších představitelů ISDS, který jsme vydali na začátku tohoto roku. Teď už mi nezbývá, než vám předat slovo. Pokud máte nějaké otázky, dotazy, tak ano. Takhle předám mikrofon.
Krajovička, nejprve takovou základní. Kdo jsou voliči anebo příznivci koalice? Věkově, sociálně, vzděláním a tak podobně, abychom si dovedli představit, kdo vlastně se teda připojil k této nové straně. Děkuji.
Well, it's sorry. Okay. Well, are 3 parties in the 4th group, and each party is actually has very different backgrounds. For instance, our party, Initiative for Democratic Socialism, is very. We have supporters mainly within young people and intellectuals, and NGOs in some cases. And then there is sustainable development of Slovenia. This is an ecological party, so they have support of ecologists and also NGOs, because there are a lot of NGO people in members of that party. And then the Workers' Party, the Democratic Party of Workers, is actually more, they're not very much educated, most of the members. Most of them are, I don't know, farmers and workers, I guess, and they have support in those circles. So, but like in general, I would say the young, the intellectuals and ecologists are the main supporters for now. And we hope for the workers to follow.
Here I would just maybe add that, you know, of course there are also some of the supporters who were always left-wing, but the parties that kept presenting themselves as left were disappointing them or through time dissolved. You know, there were like, let's say, how would you say, like LDS?
So liberals,
social liberals, or like, you know, some of the people who used to vote for social democrats, or there was like a party called Zares, which in Slovenian means for real, that also at one point presented itself as a viable left alternative and turned out not to be a viable left alternative. So we are, you know, kind of stealing voters from also, you know, established or previous left parties. I think that maybe important to add here as well is this element of, you know, uniting into the coalition, because the Slovenian left electorate is very disappointed that the left pole is very dispersed. So I think that was also an element that people responded to in terms of, you know, that they saw coalition building and building alliances on the left pole, which, you know, hasn't really happened in a long time. So I would say that that was also one of the, let's say, one of the factors that that, you know, was interesting for left voters. But I would also say, yeah, like Bor said, I think at the national elections, when they were doing, you know, the analysis, there was an extremely high percentage of young people who voted for our party. So I'm talking about the group between 18 and 22 or 25, like, so which is very much encouraging.
Okay. No, jeden.
Já bych chtěl jenom doplnit ještě tu otázku. Jestli můžete říct asi, jak vypadá početní stav teda sympatizujících a členů těchto 3 skupin a doplnit to ještě teda, jaká je váha, ty proporce mezi těmi jednotlivými stranami, včetně té 4. skupiny, která bude pravděpodobně nevyhraněná. Druhá otázka potom by byla, do jaké míry jako se ten programový profil rýsuje teda vůči té koalici, ten dle vaší strany. Děkuji. Plesu, já jsem se zapomněl předtím.
So I would say that we started off, let's say, that Democratic Labour Party had maybe the broader membership, however, also the least active membership. Because its former president used to be a parliamentarian for the Slovenian Pensioners Party. So he took some of the base off, which then represents elderly people, so they are not, you know, up to speed with technology, emails, and other forms of, you know, information flows. So they have a very broad, let's say, regional network, but they're the least, they have the least active membership. Then I would say that this was followed by the Sustainable Development Party, which had approximately, let's say, around 500, like, somewhat active members. For the Initiative of Democratic Socialism, we started off at having around 300 members after the founding Congress, and now I would think that we are closely approaching the party of sustainable development, and I think slowly we are also exceeding it. I would think, like, my estimations would be, because unfortunately we don't really have you know, the exact numbers, because the membership is constantly changing, but I would say that the trend of growth is definitely the biggest in our party, because, you know, we are also very active in the field, and I can see by the number of local cells and committees that keep on appearing that the membership is definitely growing. For the fourth group, however, I would also say that the membership is growing, but it's very hard to keep track, because usually how it happens is that whole organizations join. So for instance, I don't know, let's say small syndicates, or like, you know, we have the alliance of after World War fighters, you know, so like, you know, these are small hubs that then join, and, you know, it's a little bit hard to keep track because we don't know the exact membership of these organizations. The influx of individuals, on the other hand, I would say it's slower in pace. But as I said before, also, you know, in the fourth block, the integration or non-integration plays a very important part. So I would say that maybe if we are thinking from the aspect of, you know, consolidated and active membership, I would definitely say that our party is the most active, and, you know, kind of has this fresh energy, because, you know, the other two parties already existed before. They already went to elections in the previous round of national elections. So, you know, they kind of already went through the phase of after-election fatigue, and probably it was harder for them to reactivate their existing membership network.
Program-wise, it's we actually, the idea is we wrote the program. The only thing that the sustainable development of Slovenia, the other party, brought into our program is the word of ecological, and so they kind of wanted to put this term more into our program, which we of course accepted, and we are, you know, democratic, ecological socialist party. The thing is, with the the party of workers, they actually didn't have much of a program. Also the sustainable development, the program was very thin. So they actually accepted our program.
I would just add to that one word, that with accepting our program, they actually radicalized with respect to their previous, let's say, political position on the scale. So, you know,
Dobrý den, jmenuji se Bor Kirn. Já bych chtěl navázat na ty předchozí otázky a chtěl bych se vlastně zeptat, jestli se vám daří, teďka myslím, jak Sjednocené levice, tak jednotlivým frakcím nebo členským stranám daří nalákat voliče mimo města, někdy z periferií venkova. A zároveň teda, pokud ano, tak jestli je to víc tím programem, který jsem teda teďka pochopil, že je docela propojený, nebo že se nediferencuje, nebo je to spíš profilem těch členů, že se to zajímalo právě, když teda ta strana demokratické práce pracujících, jestli právě jim se daří tím, že sympatizanti nebo voliči v nich vidí ty jako lidi s podobným profilem jako právě těm voličům, anebo jestli se daří nějakým programem třeba zvyšování minimální mzdy nebo programem proti těm škrtům daří nějakým způsobem víc lákat ty voliče, kteří už nevěří těm původním středovodním stranám.
About the last question, the thing is that maybe we have this luck or unluck that most of the, well, all of the parties that are in United Left people in Slovenia, most of the people don't even know that they are in the party, that there are three parties in the United Left. Slovenians only know the United Left, so that can be a bad thing and also a good thing in some ways. About the successfulness in rural areas, actually we were quite surprised at how much support we got in the rural areas. There is actually this famous for us municipality that is very small. It has 10 members of the city council, and 9 of them are from the right-wing SDS from Janez Janša, and 1 is ours. Comes from ours. So it's actually we are you know trying to you know put into program a lot of new ideas how to develop rural environments, rural places. So, for instance, we are really trying to legalize cannabis. That is one of our main goals, and also the hemp, industrial hemp, and so helping the farmers. We are also very ecological. We are trying to you know, put these terms into action and into our program. So and also our local committees are, you know, are doing their work. They are on the field, on the terrain, getting to know people, their problems, their ideas, and trying to implement it into their into our work and into our program. There was one more question, yeah? Was it? Were there 3 questions, right?
No, tak pro procent. No, možná, jestli se vám zdá, že ta atraktivita pro voliče třeba na tom venkově nebo mezi pracujícími, těmi méně vzdělanými, je víc o programu nebo víc o tom, že si ti voliči tu stranu spojují s nějakými konkrétními lidmi nebo profilem těch jako, možná trošku výraznějších osob. A možná bych se tím pádem ještě se ptal, jestli jsou v té vaší straně nebo koalici nějaké výrazné osobnosti.
to what was the previous question. So I'm going to try to explain it in a way that your last question is going to be somewhat incorporated in my answers. So if I go back to the electorate from rural areas, I would say that at this point, everything very much depends on individuals working in local environments and their commitment. Because we've seen amazing examples, for instance, where the basic electorate was right-wing or very conservative, and we managed to actually one of the MPs got elected in such a constituency, which clearly shows that with a lot of commitment, you can do we can have good progress, which is then of course a mixture of the program and the ideas the program contains. For rural areas, I would maybe say that of course in the cities we have larger support, and in the rural areas one of the problems is that our network is not as well spread as the other pre-established parties. And the other, problem is also, that we have this nasty word of socialism in the title or in the whole program. So, we have to kind of find ways around, to maybe start with examples or with the policies or with the ideas, rather than putting forward or advertising that we are left or want to be a little bit more radical left, because. You have to have some sort of feel for, how to reach the place. I will, and now I would come to this phase with the personality. I'm going to give you one example about how people reacted on our program. So during the national elections, we had huge problems with media omission. So all the main newspapers, whenever they were showing polls, they never mentioned us, even though they were mentioning the newly founded party who then came in power, who actually established after us. We were never to be seen. So it was very hard to get to come to the television and participate in debates. To kind of present the program. So what happened then was that by some happy coincidence, 2 days before the electoral silence deadline, or I don't know what it's called in English, we got invited to one commercial television that has a very broad reach, and we sent our, let's say, leading media face. His name is Luka Mesec. He's also the parliamentarian, and he's the lead of the parliamentarian group at the moment. And this was actually the first time we got a chance to present our ideas, our ideological platform, our policies in front of a broader audience. And the response the next day was incredible. Our webpage collapsed, our Facebook membership doubled. We were going on the street, and 2 times it happened to us that we, heard people whispering, talking to each other, how they didn't really want to go to vote, but now this new party, it's very interesting that they're the only ones who are not saying the old same thing. So, I would I think that the program is playing a big part, especially. And it's slowly, this whole, let's say, taboo around socialism is also starting to melt down. I think one of the biggest, reasons was also that, before the elections, nobody really believed that we are going to make it. And then a lot of people who would vote for us, but really didn't dare to, because they were they're not going to get enough to even do anything. like this all that came into play. So I would say that now this is also reflected in the constant support we're getting. That people are starting to listen to us and they're starting to realize that the policies that we want are actually for the people and not the old same old things that and excuses why we have to privatize, which is mainly what the other parties are saying. So I hope I answered all of the questions.
Díky moc. Už se nám bude čas, tak ještě jsem chtěl 2 otázky, tak je spojíme dohromady. A kdyby se chtěl ještě někdo, tak prosím se přihlašte.
Dobrý večer, mé jméno je Michal Vítěz. Chtěl bych vám moc poděkovat za to, že jste si udělali čas a přijeli k nám. Slovinsko je krásná země a to, že tady jsou takový mladí lidi s krásnýma myšlenkama, je opravdu pozitivní, takže děkuju. Chtěl jsem se zeptat, jak se k vám, tady byly změny významné osoby, staví ze slovinského prostředí, třeba Slavoj Žižek, jaký má postoj k vašim aktivitám. Možná už to trošku zaznělo, ale socialismus bývá někdy vnímán jako velmi utopický cíl. Jaký máte dílčí kroky, abyste neodradili lidi? Další moje otázka, jenom krátce, jak se díváte na vlastnictví a programově třeba akceptujete soukromé vlastnictví, my bavíme se teď o výrobních prostředcích, jak se na tuto oblast díváte? A jenom poslední, jestli ve Slovinsku ještě funguje komunistická strana, nebo jakým stylem se vyrovnáváte vlastně i s tím dalším subjektem na levici? Děkuji.
Dobrý den. Jaká jsou další významná levicová nebo středolevá uskupení ve Slovinsku, případně vůbec někdo vám blízký a s kým spolupracujete nebo můžete spolupracovat?
Děkuji a poslední dotaz, ještě tady dopředu. A tím bychom debatu uzavřeli.
Takže poslední 2 otázky nebo vodic. Nemáte obavu z toho, že placený aparát v té vaší nové straně získá nadměrnou moc a že nakonec on nabíde vrchol? A druhá, hovořili jste o významné míře vnitrostranické nebo té vnitroorganizační přímé demokracie, čili jestli byste mohli přiblížit, kdy tu přímou demokracii používáte, nějaké příklady, kdy jste ji použili, nebo na co ji budete používat. Děkuji.
Tak, děkuji moc. Předávám slovo řečníku.
So, about Žižek. He is an interesting international figure. I am a philosopher myself, so I have heard him speak and I have read a little bit of his theory. In his early years as the young Žižek, he was a very productive theorist, which now I cannot say anymore so much. He's more of a rock star by now, and he's many times, trolling, or how do you say, the internet. He's saying shocking things so he can get media coverage, and especially outside of Slovenia. The thing is, he says he's a communist, or a Leninist, or a Stalinist, or I don't actually know what else people say about him. But in Slovenia, he is very liberal. He supports a very liberal party, which was called, or let's say a liberal figure, Gregor Golovic. He had this party For Real that she was telling about. He actually, before the elections, he was against us. He went publicly against us, and he said that we don't have a right agenda, and that we are not, that we are basically bullshit. So, yeah, he was always in the national level supporting the neoliberals and never the socialists. So that's the difference between the international Zizek and the Zizek that really is. About socialism, parliamentarism or the parliamentary struggle is just one of the struggles that we're gonna have to, you know, that we're gonna have to, that we're gonna have to fight. This is just one area. We're gonna go everywhere. We're gonna be on the streets. We're gonna be in the parliament. We're gonna be in the media. We're gonna be in theory. So, yeah, one of the partial steps, we had ideas in the municipal elections or the local elections with the participatory budget. This is one of the things that we think is one of the most important in the local level. Also, we are promoting the worker ownership of the companies, self-management, as we used to have in Yugoslavia, but in today's perspective. Nationalized state-owned companies. That is also one of the main goals, to stop this privatization. And these are like just the partial steps. We will see how it will go through years to come, but these are probably the main goals for now.
Okay, I would maybe add here as well that one of these partial steps, you know, even though we decided for parliamentary elections, you know, this was the debate either to, you know, stay outside and build our, you know, national network, and then, you know, when we're ready and we're established in the field, go to the parliamentary election. Even though we decided to take this parliamentary route now, one of the, let's say, steps was definitely that, you know, we don't make compromises when it comes to the program. So, you know, like, being in opposition gives us, okay, we have limited, you know, let's say, power, decision-making power, but it gives us like a chance to break down, you know, some of the discourses that, you know, are very much embedded right now in the political space, and, you know, start, you know, pushing, you know, for alternatives. So, you know, to kind of switch people's minds that these things are possible. And, you know, like with, you know, our, let's say, outside parliamentary things that we do, like we also have, you know, on Facebook and, you know, on our webpage, we're very much trying to feed people alternative news, also what's happening outside of Europe, good practices, you know, critical news, things that are not covered by, you know, mass media, just to, you know, give the people the feeling that they're not isolated. And, you know, I don't think we have a good answer here what are the immediate steps, but I also think that, you know, our efforts to work outside of Slovenia, so, you know, regionally as well as, you know, on the European level, trying to combine these forces. I think it's very important to start, you know, kind of building alliances and start a cooperation, because, you know, like, and then we have, you know, maybe we'll have Syriza, maybe we'll have Podemos, and then, you know, these are already free countries, even though a couple of years ago nobody would even there to dream, like, you know, anything else than, you know, a third of right-wing government would be able in Europe, would be possible in Europe, I'm sorry. So, you know, like, I think it's, as Bor said, you know, it's, we're also trying to put forward, like, the program as it is, and then, you know, like, people are responding to that, so I think these are our intermediate steps. We will definitely wait and still be in opposition, trying to, you know, strengthen our let's say, local network, educate people, talk to them, try to listen to them, incorporate their problems into our policies, you know, to establish like a two-way process. So yeah, this would be my position to this question.
So about the communists, we have a Slovenian Communist Party, which is basically clinically dead. They're not a factor, they never were after the separation. So about the other important center-left or left groups, we are, with most of them, we are already communicating and also cooperating on some ideas, on some projects, especially the anti-TTIP, CETA and TISA campaign. We are working with the Pirates, we are working with the Solidarnost, the social liberal group that also emerged from the mass protests. We are working with civil society, with NGOs. Apart from that, from my point of view, we don't have any other leftist parties or groups. Even with Pirates, that would be debatable. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just say that, you know, like, they may proclaim themselves as leftist, like, you know, social democrats do, but usually this comes only on this, you know, let's say, I don't want to say that these issues are marginal, but, like, you know, on the larger scale, have less impact, let's say, so, you know, like abortion rights, minority rights, these are maybe things that they are, you know, let's say, more progressive than the conservative parties, but when it comes to, you know, economic issues, it's the same story. It's like, you know, the king is dead, like long live the king. It's just, you know, figures change, parties change, but the discourse like rigidly stays the same. It's really incredible how they're very consistent.
About accepting the private ownership or not, we're proposing the self-management, as I said before. This is one of the main things in our program. Cooperatives and self-management.
And we also, like, you know, we used to have in Slovenia, I don't know how that would be translated, it was like a covered body that had an oversight over, you know, how big, the transactions and, you know, the transfers and, you know, how companies were actually functioning and working. So in this spirit, we are also, you know, advocating for the policy of open books in the functioning of firms. You know, so everyone would have, you know, insight in the, like, you know, what are the salaries, you know, like, because now even if you're maybe working for a firm, you can't see how much are the salaries of other people that are employed there, you know, like, and before that we had all that. We had like a fiscal overview, like a, you know, financial overview, and, you know, in our opinion, this body would be again necessary to establish, to re-establish actually. But of course, like, also, you know, I don't think that we can prevent prevent private ownership in this space. So, you know, also our program was based on, you know, some kind of a, to be as realistic as possible. So, you know, to take the current situation and try to transform it so it would be better. So that's why, you know, also in maybe like private ownership, we had ideas of having it